tend to make stories outside of us very personal, as a personal attack or a personal deficiency. Remember, relationships are so complicated, and 90% of the time it isn't about you. Hello, and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be a great day. Today, we're talking about the stories that sideline your business, the stories that you create inside your own head that actually hurt you in your business. And the reason why I love talking about this so much is because it reminds us of the power we have in our own success, in business and in life. Because I promise you, if you can create stories inside your own head that ruin your business, you can also create stories that allow your business to soar. And what we're focusing on today is 3 interesting aspects of positive psychology that focus on what is it that allows us to take something negative that happens to us, some kind of an event in our lives, and either look at it as a terrible, horrible incident that just is an example of everything that happens to us in our whole world and really limits us in terms of our power to have over the situation. Or how can we look at something from a positive perspective and do the age-old take the lesson and leave the pain? And how do we do that in business? So today, I'm going to bring you 3 stories from the dental chair, which is exciting for all of my dental entrepreneurs out there. And if you're not a dental entrepreneur, then you're a business owner or a business leader, you might actually find this story just as interesting because I'm sure there's crossover in your world as well. And the 3 aspects that we're looking at in terms of how we relay and fabricate stories in our minds is actually, they start with 3 P's. And they are pervasiveness, permanence, and then personal. And it's nice to look at them with those 3 P's. The alliteration helps in terms of a mnemonic device. But I like to look at it in that regard because reflecting on these stories, as I share with you each of these stories, you'll begin to see how there might have been habit patterns in your own life as the CEO of your business or the CEO of your family or the CEO of your dreams, where you've allowed one of these habit patterns to really take control and create a story that was not true and that actually hurt you. So let's start with the first one, which is pervasiveness. So what pervasiveness means is just it's happening everywhere. It's happening all over the place. So a story that I have to share with you is actually a really heart-wrenching one for me because I feel exactly what happened to this colleague of mine because I used to do the same thing to myself. We recently had a big gathering that we hosted, my business partner and I, and we invited all the women in dentistry in our area. We wanted to make it all inclusive of everybody. We wanted to welcome everybody after the pandemic. We didn't have this area of social support. And we really wanted everyone to feel like they could find connection and community again. And a few days after the event, we posted some photos and celebrated the incredible women who we supported at that event. And we got an email from one of the really phenomenal dentists in our community who we do actually know quite closely. And the email was so heart-wrenching. She was so upset that she wasn't invited. She felt like this had been a problem always and in all aspects of dentistry for her, that she was just left out of things. Trying to understand why we didn't include her, why we didn't assume that she could be a part of this as well, why we left her out. The story went on and on and on about ideas of why she thought she was always left out of things. The hard part about this story is that I've been there myself when I felt excluded from something, when I either wasn't invited or I wasn't asked to be a part of something when I really wanted to be. And I told myself those same stories in my previous years that, this always happens to me. I'm always left out. I'm always left out of the in crowd, always left out of the no. And feeling like this just happened in all aspects of my life. The truth of the story is, we did invite her. I don't know what happened to her invitation. I really don't know. But the point of the story is that there was a story that she created inside her own head of this pervasiveness, this happening in all aspects of her life, in all aspects of her career. And that really, this was something she couldn't change. She didn't understand, but it just seemed to keep happening over and over and over again and in all aspects. That pervasiveness, that pervasive story that we tell ourselves can be so hurtful and incredibly not true. More often than not, there's not something that's pervasive in anything that we do, especially in business. When you tell yourself, my patients feel this way about me, my parents feel this way about me, my teachers used to feel this way about me, my children feel this way about me, there's probably an exaggeration on your part. And when you can take a look at it and make it a little bit smaller for yourself and see it as an isolated incident, then it allows you to have more creativity and more power over the situation in all aspects of business and in your life. So recognizing that it doesn't have to represent something that's happening everywhere to you, and you really can focus on the situation at hand to understand it better, to possibly learn from, and not to have this self-defeating attitude and self-defeating story that really shackles us from being able to move forward and find great empowering growth and solutions. The second P, remember I said, was permanence. And this is very similar to the pervasiveness aspect, but now we're talking about it in terms of time. So language that might come up in business when it comes to permanence is this always happens or this never happens. I never get anything to work. I can never get my team members to support me. This is always how it's going to be. So the story that I have for you from the dental chair is actually from one of my patients. This very sweet, incredible man, I call him a man because he's really become a man over the years. He came to me as an 18-year-old boy, and at the time he really was a boy, on the autistic spectrum, nonverbal. Such a sweetheart, Ben. And when Ben came to me at 18, he had incredible crowding, and he had trouble keeping his teeth clean. He had trouble eating. He had trouble at the dentist's office. He also was very self-conscious of his smile and possibly not trying to talk as much, not putting himself out there as much because he was always hiding his teeth. Now, the story starts actually 10 years prior to me meeting Ben. And what the story starts with was his parents being told by many dentists and orthodontists that he was never going to be able to tolerate braces to correct his smile. And that permanence became the defeating story for Ben. Just that you'll never be able to do this. Remember that language, again, is so important because it either puts you in a place of empowerment or in a place of victimization. And by constantly feeding his parents with this story that it was never possible for Ben, it really prevented them from seeking out solutions. Now, this is where I have to give enormous props to his parents because they are such incredible people and they wouldn't give up. So for 10 years, they looked for support. And finally, at 18, I got to meet Ben. And we were so grateful to be able to help him with his smile because we just thought outside of the box. We just thought about how his tolerance of fixed braces couldn't happen. He couldn't have metal in his mouth because he was getting frequent MRIs. But we knew that he could tolerate and he could work with us with plastic. And so we did Invisalign on him. and his smile today is beautiful. So the permanence of a situation can also be a story that we tell ourselves that just isn't true and can limit us from seeking alternative solutions. There is no never, and there is no always. We learned this through the pandemic as business owners. Nothing ever lasts forever, not the good, and most certainly not the bad. So, what are the stories that you're telling yourself about business ownership, about being a leader, that sounds like never or always? And can you once again look at the situation at hand as an isolated incident in time? Can you see that in this moment in time only something is happening? It's very similar to the pervasiveness stance. What we need right now is to leverage happiness in the workplace. If you're a leader or manager struggling with retaining team members and frustrated with the current staffing shortage, group coaching for your team is your solution. Christina Unrein and I have partnered together to build a 10-week group coaching workshop for your business, focused directly on increasing happiness and positivity in the workplace. How do we do this? We use the awesome systems you already have in place and support your team members directly with tools for a mindset shift for awareness of their individual power to own their own happiness. Learn how to cultivate accountability for happiness in your team members and guide them with the tools to own their empowerment at work. Turning around workplace culture starts with individuals, and Christina and I are here for you. Email me at tarryn@thebizofhappiness.com if you are ready to make workplace happiness your competitive advantage. And now I'm going to express to you the third P, which also is intimately related, in personal. We tend to make stories outside of us very personal, as a personal attack or a personal deficiency. Remember, relationships are so complicated, and 90% of the time it isn't about you. 90% of the time, it's something happening outside of you. And the story from the dental chair that I have for you about personal is one that happened in my first dental practice, my first orthodontic practice. I had two phenomenal siblings. They did really well. They were great patients, and their treatment went spectacularly. Unfortunately, as many teenagers will do, one of them didn't do such a great job wearing her retainer. And so we had a very angry mom return to us a year after her treatment was complete. Even though her smile was spectacular and she didn't wear her retainer and she knew the responsibility, mom came back on fire, angry about the movement of her daughter's teeth because she didn't wear her retainer. Mom was so angry that she threatened to do all kinds of things to us. At the time. It wasn't even social media. Can you believe it? That she didn't threaten social media. She threatened to say negative things about our office at the bus stop, which at the time was threatening to me. Oh, and I took that story home. I felt so bad. I let that story eat me up as a business owner and told myself that I had done things wrong. I'd not put in good policy, good procedures in the practice to let patients know how important their retainers were. And then I started to expand that to feel bad about all leadership decisions. Till I, a few years later, re-met this mother as a new patient. And when she came in as a new patient, she said to me, "Dr. MacCarthy, I am coming to you because I need orthodontics and I know that you're the best." I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that because we left on such difficult terms. You were so unhappy in our practice. I'm so glad to have you back, but what changed?" And she said, "Oh, that? I was going through a terrible divorce and I was just so angry that day and I'm so sorry for the way I spoke to your team." She couldn't even remember the things that she had said that I had taken so personally. Once again, a great example of how for years I had carried with me a story that just wasn't true. I created a very personal ownership of a problem that didn't even exist. And it really hindered me from being able to see other solutions to, once again, as I mentioned earlier, see the lesson in the situation and learn from it and create a new plan, a new solution, a new area of growth and understanding and learning, just because I was making it so personal. So as you go forward with your day and your week, I hope you consider these three aspects. We look at them from a very clinical business perspective in terms of how to not make unwanted, unexpected occurrences outside of you become permanent, pervasive, or personal, and really just see them for what they are: isolated incidents in time and in situation, and very possibly not a reflection of who you are personally, but perhaps insight into maybe a new protocol or a new system that you can put in place. Just information, just some evidence of how you can always have a goal of honing in to be 1% better, always trying to increase your mastery and your excellence and your impact on the community, but not necessarily allowing it to victimize you and make you feel like you don't have any control or say over the outcome. You know, that's the one great thing about owning a business, is that we do have so much control. But when we tell ourselves these stories, we actually give away our control and our power to something nebulous like pervasiveness or permanence. I love bringing this information to you. I really do, because I see so many great correlations for especially entrepreneurs who are starting out on their journey and just learning this leadership language. And really, it is the language that we feed ourselves. And right now, over in my private Facebook group, the Business of Happiness Hive, we're actually speaking about these 3 Ps as it comes to the personal talk, the self-talk. The positive self-talk challenge is what I've called it. And really, it's a tool that business owners and business leaders can use to rewrite that script, that old story that you've been telling yourself, and recognize it for what it is. And these are just tools and insights. The great thing is it takes out the emotional sting, because whenever we make up these stories, they actually have a very emotional burden attached to them. And one of the superpowers of a great leader or a business owner is to be able to step outside of the emotional and see the situation for what it is. So if this is of any interest to you, then please come on over to my private Facebook page, The Business of Happiness Hive, and it really is a platform for business owners and leaders and managers of their teams to be able to come and learn these great resources like this one that we're speaking about today, and give you some tools and strategies to create a new habit pattern to really make a greater impact in a more positive way, and to find your happiness in work and in life. Because I believe so deeply, right to my core, that when we allow ourselves to check in with our emotions and find those things that light us up, we really can make positive change in this world. And when we can share that message, we can create a revolution of well-being. So thank you again for joining me today. And remember, my friends, when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Goodbye.